They keep you 20, 30, 40, 50 years behind the times. That's what they do. And when something crops up that you should see, or a few people are noticing, in comes their propaganda. They're the first to put out the propaganda. Like the noctilucent clouds that suddenly started appearing, and they try to tell you how far back they went, and they were not new at all, and all this rubbish. It was all rubbish. Always putting the spin on things so that you can tell an idiot, and there's lots of idiots out there. Have you ever looked at the sky and wondered what all those lines are? And they'll tell you, must be a lot of aircraft, you know. There's about 2 aircraft going into Sudbury per day here. That's about it. Meanwhile, you've got about 15 in the air spraying back and forth. Well, I don't know. But they're gone. Most folk are gone, and you've got to accept that. Or you'll spend your life battering your head, trying to use your ego to dominate their ego until they admit you're right. That's a killer. Don't fall into that trap. Most folk will do that with their families. All you do is get kicked out, or they'll move off, or something like that. You can only use your time on people who are worthwhile to use it upon. Ones who are already asking questions. If they're asking questions, that means they're not quite so lobotomized as the rest. They have a bit of wildness there, of survivable capabilities. Now, I've gone on in quite depth for years actually, because when the spraying started here daily in Ontario, daily it started in 1998. I can remember the day it started. I couldn't believe it when I walked outside, and they were much lower at that time, doing heavy, long trails from horizon to horizon, and it literally was like a checkerboard, north, south, east, west. And it's been like that ever since. They're a bit higher now. They've got better stuff to mix together that form into this mushy eggshell color much quicker than the old types that they used. And they are adding to it with different things here and there. That's why your throat gets raspy or sore throats. That's why about 60% of the public get recurrent bronchitis now. They just don't know what causes it. That's why everyone's allergic to everything. They call it allergies. Well, no wonder you're being poisoned, folks. This article here sums up a lot of this. I'm going to read quite a lot of it tonight because it's well worth it, and it's got a lot in it. And it's not speculation. It's from government sources themselves. And it's from the Wise Up Journal. And it's from the 13th of April, 2010. Howard Hughes Company, the company's climate change fight, it says. We're so familiar with nonsensical trivia that fills so many news mediums these days that the following information might appear the same, but it's quite the opposite. It will soon become apparent from authorized sources how important it is. To give the subject proper consideration, we need to look at a number of these sources, including an important government-funded report, an article published by the New York Times, written by Pulitzer Prize winner Seymour M. Hersh, reminding us of some old facts, and some other governmental sources. And I'll read some of this text when I come back. I mean, it really is on the ball. And I've got all this stuff already, and I've read this book, so I'll touch on some of the main parts of it and implications of it for you too. We're living in a fantasy, folks. Back after these messages. Hi, folks. This is Alan Watt, and we're cutting through the matrix, reading an article from Wise Up on the spraying and the governmental sources that you can go to see, yep, they're doing it all right, and how they've gone about it up till this present time, and where they want to go with it. And so the text below is taken directly from the United States government patent site. The restricted for government-only domain.gov can be seen in the site's address. It shows a technology with patent number, and it gives you the number by Hughes Aircraft Company, filed in 1990, with relating technology filed back in 1965. Keep in mind that the U.S. government funded a large 1992 report titled, this is a very important report or book really, Policy Implications of Greenhouse Warming, Mitigation, Adaptation, and the Science Base. By the way, you can get it on PDF and on Scribd, I think, if you do a search. There's a few places you can get it for free, which can be read from the archive of the National Academies Press. You can also go in there too and take it basically chapter by chapter. Discuss this technology on a global scale and expressed, quote, The surprise of this analysis is the relatively low costs. This is what they're on about, the low costs of dumping aluminum oxide and various other metallic oxides into the atmosphere. And they said at the time, we can do this within 2 years. That was published in 1992. It says, we'll read some more detailed extracts from this report momentarily and see how current administrations support it. But first, the technology that Hughes Company developed decades ago. Now, all the links that I'll mention are on the site, the gov links and whole bits from the government itself. So there's no conspiracy here. It's from them, those guys. And it's got the patent numbers and all the rest of it too, and links to the patent numbers. But listen to this. This is what's in this particular policy implications of greenhouse warming. It's a Bible for these guys at the top. It says stratospheric Welshback seeding for reduction of global warming. This invention relates to a method for the reduction of global warming resulting from the greenhouse effect, and in particular to a method which involves the seeding of the Earth's stratosphere with Welshback-like materials. Most current approaches to reduce global warming are to restrict the release of various greenhouse gases, such as CO2, CFC and methane. These imply the need to establish new regulations and the need to monitor various gases and to enforce the regulations. One technique proposed to seed the metallic particles was to add the tiny particles to the jet fuel of jetliners so that the particles would be emitted from the jet engine exhaust while the airliner was at its cruising altitude. While this method would increase the reflection of visible light incident from space, the metallic particles would trap the long wavelength black body radiation released from the Earth. This could result in net increase in global warming. It said here, not decrease by increase. And you found that too. When you're spraying heavily in a summer with that polymer type material C, it actually increases the heat down below. So such materials can include the class of materials known as Welshback's materials. Oxides of metals such as aluminum oxide are also suitable for the purpose. The greenhouse gases layer typically extends between 7 and 13 kilometers above the Earth's surface. The seeding of the stratosphere occurs within this layer. The particles suspended in the stratosphere. And that's the idea, to suspend it in the stratosphere for as long as possible. This article also, I've gone into all these different sites, by the way, in the government sites. They admit that in sunrise and sunset, you'll get these odd kind of rainbow effects around the sun. That's been getting seen now since 98, pretty regularly now. But they also mention in it too that they're going to use multi-battery and arrays of super lasers to pulse through the atmosphere. And I've seen the pulsation effects on some nights. It's like a piano. Someone playing a piano from top to bottom, back and forth, rippling across the sky. They're actually doing this stuff. Have been for years, folks. To continue with this one here, it says here, it's presently believed that the particle sizes in the 10 to 100 micron range would be suitable for the seeding purposes. Larger particles would tend to settle to the Earth more quickly. By the way, they also use jet streams. That's why I get so much dumped on top of me here. It carries it all the way down, large carrying area, down to Buffalo and New York area. And it comes up. They also seed it heavily over Chicago area. The greenhouse gases are typically in the Earth's stratosphere at an altitude of 7 to 13 kilometers. This suggests that the particle seeding should be done at an altitude order of 10 kilometers and then be seeded by dispersal from seeding aircraft, where an exemplary technique may be via the jet fuel as suggested by prior work, remember, they'd already done the studies on it back then, regarding the metallic particles. The National Academy of Sciences, who have a U.S. Congress charter, organized the creation of the report, again, policy implication of greenhouse warming, mitigation, adaptation, and the science base. For those who have a brain and don't mind struggling through stuff, you'll find it fascinating. For the rest of them, forget it. It's not written for you. It's just not written, you'll lose interest, after a few sentences. As on page 8 of the front matter, it states that the project was funded by the government, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and got other funding from a consortium of private foundations, again, the parallel government, including the Carnegie Corporation of New York, the Charles E. Culpeper Foundation, the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, and the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation. The project had a massive amount of people involved, and United Nations man Maurice Strong, you know Maurice Strong, the technocrat, that's what he's called, a technocrat, not responsible to the public, but makes big agendas like the Earth Charter. He was there at the conception phase, as stated on page 3. This is from the government. These introductory pages show what specialists from private and governmental bodies were involved with tunnel knowledge in the fields of chemistry, law, the Air Force, biomedical engineering, civil and environmental engineering, genetics is involved, atmospheric physics, and economics, to name a few.